Okay, I think we'll get started. Just for anyone watching the recording, this is a live webinar, and we have participants in this webinar. So during the recording, you'll hear people ask questions, and it'll be much more of a kind of a webinar type. So yeah, feel free to skip, come back, however you like. But I'll hand off to Serena for ASN introduction, and then we'll go around.
Hi everyone. So this is a collaboration that we've done with MedCamps, and essentially what this organization is to help and support aspiring surgeons and also other healthcare professionals, such as medical students and any other like medics or dentists that want to have a career in healthcare. And we do this by hosting weekly webinars on certain diseases so we can increase medical knowledge. Then we do UCAT practice sometimes. We do interview like practice and tips, and also personal statements, uh, tips as well. And we also host guest speaker events with surgeons and healthcare professionals. More coming as well. And yeah, that's what we do. And we are looking to expand to maybe physical workshops in the future. And we're going to hold many more events.
Great, thank you. So yeah, lovely to be doing this collaboration. My name is Tweza Gurji, short for, well, call me Tway, it's easier. I'm the founder and I've created MedCamps, which is this software you can see behind me. MedCamps started off as just kind of social media page, and then we developed into a digital platform. So self-taught software engineer, and then well, I say we, it's just me developed this platform, and it's the first ever interview platform for pre-meds, pre-dents, and pre-vets. So once you get to your interview stage, rather than spending thousands of pounds for workshops and one-to-one tutoring, you can use the MedCamps interview platform. And it's kind of checklist, marking criteria, are all written by myself and other interview tutors who have more than 3, 4 years each of interview experience. So we kind of know what's being asked, and what kind of questions are coming up. The exact questions that you'll get in medical school interviews are not in this platform, and we're not privy to them because of NDA laws. But it's a great platform. We launched for 1 year, and we had over 500 people pay to use the platform. It's under a monthly subscription, and we're very proud to say a lot of them got into medical schools all over the UK, including panel interview ones as well. So Imperial, Cambridge, Oxford, all of those unis as well. We're going to be expanding to UCAT and all the other stages of pre-med as well, and you might even see us during medical school. So yeah, hopefully we continue growing. But when you get to the interview stage, then think about MedCamps. But as part of MedCamps, one of our team is Shreya Morjaria, and she does a lot of personal statement coaching, one-to-one in her own time, separate from MedCamps. But she's kindly agreed to do this 3-week masterclass under MedCamps, and I'll hand it off to Shreya to introduce herself. But yeah,
Hi everyone. So as Troy said, my name is Shreya. I am a final year medical student. So both of us will be starting work as resident doctors next year in 2026. So we've obviously been through this process throughout our time at medical school for the past 5 years. We've been coaching other pre-med students to get into medicine and helping them throughout their medicine degree as well. So we do have a lot of experience in this. Me particularly, I do the personal statement side of things. I am very experienced in um, English literature, grammar, what they're looking for. I mean, most recently, the UCAS personal statement changed the way things work. So it became 3 questions instead of like a paragraph that you need to write yourself. So they've given us some more structure. So I'm well aware of the changes, and yeah, this masterclass will be a 3-part series on each 3 of the questions. I also do personal statement reviews in my own time. So if anyone is interested in that, wants some extra help, wants to ask some questions personally, I'm always available. Just give me a message and I'm happy to support you. I think we'll get started now. So Yeah, so the UCAS personal statement is basically three questions with a 4,000 character limit overall, including spaces. And each question also has a 350 character minimum character count. It's basically a way for you to sell yourself to the university, not just medicine, as we've mentioned before, like dentistry, vet med, all healthcare related degrees. It's a way for you to say, I'm really good, pick me for an interview. So this, along with like your UCAS score, is really key and really important. Different universities weight things differently. So when you're applying, I mean, check out what people say on the online forum. Some universities really, really prioritize personal statement and look for certain things. So it's always good to do your research beforehand. But during this 3 week masterclass, I'll be talking through these questions. So these are the three questions that UCAS has given you guys. So question number one is, why do you want to study this course or subject? Question number two, how have your qualifications and studies helped you prepare for this course or subject? And the last one would be, what else have you done to prepare outside of education, and why are these experiences useful? So I'll be going through the first one today, and then subsequently next week we'll do the second one. Anyone have any questions? Just feel free to say, just to like interrupt me. This is very informal. So any questions so far, or shall I continue?
Yes, we do. So Juanita, raise your hand. I'll let you read out yourself. She also put in the chat, or you put in the chat, sorry.
Um,
Okay.
yeah,
I
go
was
on.
wondering for the personal statement, do we need to pay for you to help us go through, or is it something free as part of the course?
So this course is for free, where I will show you ideal examples. I'll tell you exactly what you need to write. It's very clear what you need to do. It's one of the only resources out there that's up to date with the three question system. If you want me to do line by line comprehensive reviews of your personal statement, it will probably be more helpful for you to do that like on a call with just me and you. So that is a paid service that I offer. But if you're interested, we can talk about how that works. You can message me, or I can give you like an email breakdown of things.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Is everyone happy for me to move on now? Okay, cool. So as I said, we're going to be focusing on the first question. Why do you want to study this course or subject? So this is the infamous why medicine question. It is arguably one of the most important. It's a really good opportunity for you to show how passionate you are, how much you know already, how enthusiastic you are, and what kind of person you are in terms of like having the right characteristics to be a doctor. This question is the more academic question of the three questions, okay? Your answer also needs to be really strong because it's the first thing that they'll be reading. So first impressions matter. It's really important that your first couple sentences capture the examiner. They want to know that this is a good personal statement. I want to stick around. I want to read it. So it is a very important question. Now, I'll be going through what exactly I expect you guys to be writing in this question. But first, before I go into techniques and examples, I want some volunteers, just in a few words. Can you tell me why medicine? Like, why are you guys joining this today? It's summer holidays. You know, you don't want to be doing work, but why have you joined this? Why do you have this passion? So just shout out. I want just a couple words, couple answers, and then we'll go from there. Got to have something, guys. If this was your interview, you'd be talking right now.
It is an interview question actually. So this one, again, it comes up. Some med schools like to use this as the first question of the interview as well. So it's good to get in a rhythm. I highly recommend someone volunteer. You'll get free practice right now.
Passion.
Okay, you have a passion. Can I ask a passion what for?
Human biology in particular.
Okay, okay, good answer. Anyone else? Thank you for volunteering. Anyone else have
Um,
anything to add?
Agnes also put personal experience. So maybe a person in her family had like medical illness.
Okay. Anyone else? Feel free to
We've
just unmute.
we've got our hands up.
Yeah, go on.
I really find interesting academic science and how it can be used in the service of other people.
Yeah, nice one. All good answers. Anything else? We had some good examples there. So, whilst those examples are exactly what we're looking for, do you guys see how they kind of all sound the same? Like, I can't pin you apart from anyone else because everyone is saying they like biology, they like the science of the human body. They have a family member who's unwell and they really love them and they feel sorry for them. They really want to treat people. They're interested in this. This is what I said. This is what everyone says. But my goal here is to make you look different to someone else. So we don't want to stay on the surface. We want to go deeper. Your answer needs to feel like your story, not something that 100 other applicants would say. So, whilst it's rooted in a love for science, or you really want to be a doctor, you really want to save lives, you want to be a surgeon, your answer needs to have something like some more flair than just that. Okay. So, that was an example of what I'm kind of looking for here. So, what you should cover in question one. The first thing we want to cover, as I've mentioned before, is why medicine. So we split this into motivations for studying medicine. Now, you can't just say, I'm really motivated to study medicine, I'm really interested in science. That's not going to get you the flair that you want. We are looking for key anecdotes, stories about why this sparked your interest. Maybe you have a particular role model in your life that set the example for you. Maybe you went through an experience and you, since that moment, always knew that this was for you. I need key specific examples that are personal to you. Okay. The admission tutors care because they want authenticity, they want depth, and they want proof. They don't want you to say a list of things that like other people have experienced as well, a list of things that other people did biology. They did the same A-level course as you did. So they want something different, okay? Um, this also goes to say that whilst you might be motivated, you need to have an understanding of what medicine entails beyond the glamorized TV shows or headlines. And they also want you to show some commitment. So, medicine is a lifelong decision. It's not like you're going to uni for 3 years and then you can enter a different workforce and have, a different career. You're signing up to this for life. So, you can't just say, I like science. It needs to be more specific and committed. Okay. So let's go through a bit more. These quotes I found specifically from the UCAS website, and I put it in there for a few reasons. Firstly, because I think they're really good. They're good ideas, so I wanted you to have them. Secondly, I want to show you that a lot of the information out there that is for free is useful. I want you guys to be resourceful. I want you guys to not turn to ChatGPT or not pay like thousands of pounds for one personal statement review. I want you to be resourceful about the people and the sites that you have around you for free. Okay, now I'm going to go through what this says. So UCAS gave examples saying, when have you grabbed the opportunity to demonstrate some behaviors and interpersonal skills that are essential to becoming a doctor? So maybe you've cared for a sick relative, you've stayed a night in A&E, anything that connects you to the work of a doctor, the experiences patients have in the NHS, the life of even if you know someone who's a nurse and you spoke to them about their experience in a multidisciplinary meeting, you have to look back at your experiences and think of something like that because you don't need to go to a fancy school or have a fancy work experience or shadow surgery to have an experience like this, okay? These are the type of common day experiences I want you to draw back on. Maybe you have a grandparent who was unwell, you maybe accompanied them to a medical appointment, anything of that sort, okay? Another example they've written is if you've spoken to someone who's in the field, you can speak to your own GP, you can speak to your pharmacist, you might have a cousin, a family member, anything like that, who somebody who's already in the system, already in this like roller coaster, who can give you their words of wisdom, you might be able to quote those words and frame it in such a way in your personal statement that makes you sound really insightful and makes you sound like you've really thought about this decision. You've not just said, yeah, I'll do medicine. You have reason, you have passion, you have specific thoughts behind it. Okay. So, any of these examples, write them down. If you don't have anything, talk to your GP, speak to somebody who you know, be proactive. Okay. Now that I've told you that you need to show your motivation for medicine, and I've told you that you need to come up with a specific example, I'm going to tell you how you're going to structure this. Okay. So it's all well and good saying, I'm interested because of XYZ, or I had this experience. But the problem I'm seeing constantly with personal statements is that people are not linking their experiences. So, what I want you guys to do is to set yourself apart by using something that I call this motivation ladder. Before I go on, does anyone have any questions yet, or shall I continue speaking about this? All good? Okay, good. Just interrupt me if you do. So the motivation ladder comes in 3 steps, and this is what I want you to go by in your whole personal statement. I mean, it works for question 1, but it works for question 2 and 3 as well. So it's really like a very helpful rule of thumb. Step 1, your spark. So the spark is like the first time you became curious about medicine. It can be a personal experience, it can be like an observational experience. It can even be academic. Like the first question is academic, as I told you before. So more often than not, people say like, I read this book, or I came across this chapter and then I attended a talk on it. I asked my teacher about XYZ, anything. My grandparent was ill, anything. This is your spark. It could have happened years ago, or it could have happened last year. Okay. Now you can't just, most
Wait,
people.
sorry. Essentially, it's kind of like your first exposure to medicine in a way.
Exactly, yeah. But my problem is that a lot of people just leave it at that.
Hmm.
Here's my spark, and here's why you should give me an interview. That's not going to be enough. You then need to explore your spark. How did you do that? If you haven't done that, do it now in the month or two you have left. Because if you have,
That shows like curiosity, right? And shows that you really want to study medicine and keep it as a career.
exactly, exactly. So, what did you do to explore that curiosity? Did you shadow? Did you volunteer? Did you speak to someone you know? Did you just ask questions? Did you read something? The way these questions are now split, before when I did it, it was like a free reign 4,000 characters. So I can put volunteering and work experience and a book all in one paragraph if I wanted to. The way you guys have to do it is question 1 is much more about your passions and your interests academically. So how I get around this is you probably want to explore by you can't really say that you did volunteering here because volunteering comes in question 3. So just keep that in mind. You want to maybe say that you read something, you listened to a podcast, you attended someone's talk, you ask questions about something, something like that. So that's your exploration. And your realization is your concluding like statement of that section of your why medicine section. You realize then that medicine is this and this, and therefore I think I'll be really fitting for this career path. I have decided from this that I want to devote myself to this vocation. Something like that, you realized. So that's a 3-part journey, and you've clearly said that to the examiner, so they know that you've thought about this, you're committed. And I've got an example on the screen right now, you've probably read it. So my neighbor had a stroke, and that made me curious about stroke rehabilitation. I then went on to volunteer weekly on a neuro ward. Sometimes this is a bit hard. You can work at like an elderly home. You can just go to your neighbor's house. You can do your neighbor's groceries for them. You don't need to go to an institution, but this is your exploration. You watched that rehab happen and you became really hooked onto learning more about it. You then saw emotional and physical needs. You realize that medicine is reliant on whole person care, like the emotional needs and the physical needs. So if you don't do this, you'll end up with a list that has no clear link. So this is if you take anything away from today's talk, it should be this, okay? Moving on. Any questions? Any comments?
One from me actually. So you know much more about personal statements than I do. You literally review them every day. But is this similar to with interviews? The biggest thing that sets people out in interviews is being able to tell a story. Is it similar to that then? Are you essentially trying to tell a story, or is it different to that?
You are trying to tell a story, probably not in your whole personal statement, but this is specific to why medicine. Because often people just say because I like science. So having a three-part like story to show your growth as a person that made you arrive at medicine is really useful, and then you can use that same ethos in your interviews as well, and they're likely to ask questions like this, and it makes you look like a more three-dimensional person if you show them those three steps, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to move on to the next slide now. It's again about why medicine, but I wanted to highlight that you need to be genuine, not cliche. Most of us want to go into medicine for cliche reasons. Let's be honest. You want to save lives. You think it's really cool. You're an empathetic person. Somebody died and you want to help the world. And this is like, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but if you want to stand out, you can't be cliche. So saying I love science and I like to help people is true for a lot of people, often people who don't even do medicine in the end. So you need to say something like, I read this book about neurosurgery. It taught me about the technical skills, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, I'm just riffing off the top of my head, but you need specific visual examples that show that you reflected on your experiences and you arrived at your motivation to study medicine. Okay, you need to imagine that there's thousands of other applicants that are saying the same thing as you. So you need to dig deep until it's unique to yourself. And you will struggle and you will have to rewrite it a lot of times until it's good enough. But this is the key to having an impressive personal statement. Okay. Especially in medicine, where often people's reasons are cliche. Like if you were going to study English, you wouldn't be too worried about things being cliche. If you're going to study physics, it's not going to be cliche. You are interested in specific things, right? So this is very specific to medicine, this tip. So moving on, we've covered basically our motivations to study medicine, like our why medicine. The next thing that you must include in question 1 is knowledge about, we have a hand up. Do you want to go ahead?
When you said about avoiding cliches, so instead of directly saying that ever since I was a kid, would you talk about the story that actually happened when you were a kid, or would that still count as going on a cliche?
You can talk about your story because your story likely didn't happen to anyone else in the way it happened to you. Granted, a lot of people's granddad has heart problems, right? So, whatever your story is, or whatever happened to you or your loved one, I want you to reflect on it and I want you to be able to talk about it intellectually. So, yes, don't say ever since I was a kid, I wanted to do medicine. Say, when I was 7 years old and I had this experience, it moved me in such a way that I was set on this vocation. You see, and you like elaborate in that way. So, you make your story your own story, not just saying I have a story, because everyone has a story. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
No worries. Any more questions so far?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay, good. So as I was saying, the next thing that you need to cover in question 1 is some sort of proof of knowledge of the subject, and like a particular interest. So often, like if you're studying chemistry or biology, for example, it can be a specific module that you really liked, a specific coursework that you did, a book that you read, a talk that you attended. This is really important because medicine is a 5 to 6 year course. And even beyond that, you will have exams for the rest of your life. You need to sell yourself as a committed, highly academic person. You need to show that you're enthusiastic about difficult subjects and that you are open to reading about details. And when something captures your interest, you went and explored that. So don't just say, I really like biology and I like the way the heart works. Pick specific examples of areas that fixated you and explore and tell them how you explored it. So I liked this module in biology, I did a coursework, then I read this. Okay. Expanding on that a bit more, I want you to show and not tell. So I've put an example in here. I am very interested in the science behind disease. And this is a quote from a personal statement. I found areas in the biology course, such as defense against infectious diseases, fascinated. Immediately, you're giving them a specific example. Now, I want to highlight to you guys that whatever's in this statement, they might ask you about it in your interview. So if you're not an expert on defense against infectious diseases, don't put it in. Don't put it in just because I told you to put it in. Put something that you're interested in, read up on it, because if it's good enough for them to give you an interview, you need to be good enough for you to talk about it in an interview. Okay. So it's all well and good putting it like complex things in there, but just be aware that they will ask you about something and it won't be a good look if you can't talk about it. Okay. So I'm not saying to talk about the most complicated things, I'm saying to be specific. So yeah, you guys can read that example that's on the screen. That's an example of showing and not telling. I've got another one as well. I am passionate about the science behind the heart and am keen to work in cardiology departments. Now, the reason why this is actually okay is because you've mentioned cardiology and the heart. You haven't just said, I like science. So immediately it's not too bad, but you're still just telling. When I read the show part, it says, when I read X by Y, I realized that this course is a great fit for my interests and aspirations. I got an insightful introduction to cardiovascular health and the anatomy of the heart. I learned to appreciate the importance of primary prevention before medical intervention. That is a stellar example of showing and not telling. And it actually takes you through a journey, right? Like I said before, you read this, you got an example, an introduction of this, you learned this. You're showing them a story, you're showing them your reflection. I also want to put a disclaimer that all of these quotes that I'm giving you and examples that I'm giving you are from real personal statements. And it won't, like, they do a lot of checks. So I don't recommend copying anything that I'm showing you today. You need to come up with your own examples. If you guys find it difficult to maybe write in a good way, in an impressive way, then I'm open to coaching you on how to make your personal statement sound more impressive. But in terms of content and ideas, this is just to jog your thoughts. This is not for you guys to write it down and use in your own personal statements. It won't help you.
We have a question in the chat. So for question one, is it like writing a personal slash reflective essay that you would do in English with like emotive language, for example?
Sorry, you cut out at the end. Just repeat that.
Sorry, yeah, it might be my. So for question one, is it like writing a personal or reflective essay that you would do in English, for example, using emotive language?
Um, I wouldn't say that you should use too much emotive language because it might sound flowery, and B, you might be using up a lot of characters where you don't need to. So don't use so many adjectives and describe I did this like this, and it's not a flowery English piece. However, you need to sound academic, you need to sound clever. So writing neatly, tight wording, good connections between your sentences. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a bunch of adjectives and like emotive language. Does that make sense? I recognize that some people maybe don't do like English in their A levels or it wasn't really their strong suit in GCSEs. I'm happy to help if that's like a weakness of yours, but don't use like emotive language, like really like emotional over the top language. Moving on to the next slide. So here's like a checklist. We've now talked about motivations for studying medicine. We've talked about how you need to show academic interest. And now in question one, what UCAS wants is for you to talk about your future plans with the course. So this is relevant even for non-medical degrees. Even if you were studying like art or English, for example, they want you to talk about your future plans. But for medicine or healthcare degrees, it's actually quite easy because we're all going to end up being doctors. We're all going to work for the NHS. So you need to set yourself apart then. You need to talk about being a doctor in the NHS. What does this mean for you? For example, you can highlight that you see through the glamour of medicine that's shown in TV shows. You see through like the idealistic view of just saving lives, and you understand that in the future, this is going to be a challenging career and you're ready for it. Some more examples I have of that is you basically say you're committed to patient care, been reflecting on some challenges that you've seen, or for example, if you know about like different types of medicine like cardiology, dermatology, geriatrics, if you know what you're interested in, you can try to explain how those areas fascinate you and how you might want to do them in the future. So a little bit of a view into the future is what they want. They want your long-term thinking. Does that make sense? All good? Any questions? Okay. So this is basically the checklist that we've ticked off now. This is the content that I want to be in your question one. I'm now going to go on to a bit of like how to write well, how to have a good introduction. We're going to go through some examples and dissect them. Let's take like a 2-minute break and get back to it.
Yeah, we've got a question in the chat. Hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. On that third point, would I be able to mention issues within the NHS, or would that be a bad start?
You can mention issues if you want to. It can make you look like an insightful person, well-researched person. I know that I mentioned, I basically said that I'm aware that the NHS is a very politicized entity, but something like I'm very committed to it. So keep it brief, keep it only a few words. It makes you look like you know what's going on in the world. However, you're writing about yourself, not about the NHS. So don't waste your characters. If you think that flows with what you're actually interested in, as well, if you're ready to debate or talk about it in an interview, feel free to put it in. But you're selling yourself. So if you want yourself to look like an insightful person who's aware of what's going on in the news, that's your choice. But remain neutral for sure. Don't like criticize. Just say that you're aware of how it's portrayed, for example.
Yeah, I agree. I think with the interviews, that's much more heavily asked, isn't it? So in our platform, for example, one of the questions we have is if you were the Prime Minister of the UK, what's one main change you would make to improve the NHS? And so that's when your knowledge of issues within the NHS comes in. It's more for interviews, but it's, yeah, like Shreya said, it might be a good idea to just show your awareness more so. Um, but yeah, it's heavily asked in the interviews for sure.
Nice. Is that clear to whoever asked that question?
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. They commented in the chat.
Okay. I was gonna say that we have a 2-minute break, but I'm happy to just like storm on if everyone else is. So now I want to talk about what makes a compelling introduction.
Oh, someone said 2 minutes.
Let's do it.
Uh,
2-minute break. That's
let's do the 2 minutes.
2-minute break. Fine.
Yeah, so at 6:40 we'll start again. Or six, yeah, whatever, 2 minutes from now.
ready to start back up again if everyone else is?
Yep.
Okay. So as I said, now we have been through like what content I expect you guys to have in question one. I now want to talk about the fact that question one is your introductory question, and that's really important. So things that you need to be aware of is that you need to be hooking the reader on very early on. You want it to be personal. You want to add the personal into personal statement, really, in the first two, three sentences. But you don't want to be over dramatic. That's one thing. People add anecdotes and stories, and it becomes way too dramatic, and they can see right through it. Okay. Second and thirdly, you want to hint at your journey without telling it all. That's what I meant by having tight language. You want to be concise and clear. So, for example, I've always wanted to help people. This tells us nothing about you. Okay. It doesn't hook me. 100 people can say the same thing. But then I've got here. At 16, I found myself explaining a diagnosis to my grandmother, realizing that clarity and empathy could be as important as medicine itself. So this is a moment. This is a visual example. This is real and specific. This is maybe heartwarming, but it's not over dramatic. It's a sweet middle ground. Okay. So the key is to start with something that's yours. It doesn't have to be the most dramatic story, just a true story that only you could write, and a story that you can talk about, for example, in an interview, and a story that leads you to an academic passion for medicine. Okay. So that is an example of a compelling introduction. I want you guys to really work on those beginning 2 to 3 sentences. We will go on to talk about that more. Now I've got kind of an example of an answer to question one. Okay, it starts off. Well, you guys can tell me how you think it is. I'm going to put it up on the screen now, and I basically I'll read it out, and then I want you guys to interact with me. I want you to unmute, and I want you to give me your thoughts. Okay? So, I want to study medicine because I like science and I want to help people. Biology is my favorite subject at school, and I think being a doctor would be interesting. I enjoy learning about the human body and how it works. So now, as many of you as possible, I want you to either put it in the chat or unmute. What do you think about this answer to question one?
As you mentioned, this is quite like show. Like it's not showing anything. It's just telling. Like it's quite vague. And I feel like everyone would write this. So it's not unique to you.
Correct, yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts?
Got some coming in on chat. So Zara said, I think they could go into a little more depth. Natasha said very vague, doesn't explain fully. And then why do they like science? And that's what Natasha said is a good point, I think. Karia said it's very generic and doesn't have anything personal. Juanita said, what about being a doctor is interesting? So kind of getting more specific.
Mhm.
Natasha then said, what particular thing about biology or science are they interested in? Yeah, very good point as well.
Exactly. So, as I said, the 3 points that we want our why medicine. We want some academic flair, talk about knowledge of a particular interest, and then talk about the future plans. What do you want to do in the future? So, they've just said, I think being a doctor would be interesting. So, of the 3 points that I want you guys to include, I don't think they've fully fledged out each one. It seems very generic. The opening line does not capture. You've submitted a personal statement to medicine. They know you want to study medicine. You've given them nothing else really. Okay, as you guys said, it's vague and they've not given much insight, so all of your comments were spot on. Now it's a bit better. I'll read it out to you guys. I've always enjoyed biology at school, especially learning about the human body. Studying cells and the nervous system made me interested in how medicine can help people with illnesses. I want to study medicine to understand more about the human body and make a difference as a doctor. Now, please can I ask you guys to unmute and give me your thoughts on this? Or put it in the chat.
So
Anyone?
Natasha said, what about studying cells and the nervous system uh, caters, cates them, what about studying cells and the nervous system makes them interested in medicine and how can it help with diseases? Serena also said, could be better if they included medical terminology to show they are well read. Natasha
Okay.
said, how would you be able to make a difference as a doctor? So kind of like specifying more, isn't it?
Mhm.
Zara said it's definitely better, but it's not entirely personal to them. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, Natasha said, what do they enjoy about biology and the human body? Or why do they enjoy about biology? And then Ellie said, it's more specific, but maybe what did you learn about the nervous system and how did you research this in your spare time?
Exactly. Yeah. So my comments on this one was that it does show some spark and some personal interest by naming specific things, but it's still a little bit vague, right? The reflection as well is a little bit generic. It doesn't show curiosity beyond the classroom. And when I talked earlier about showing some academic flair in the second in the second thing on our checklist, that's key. I want you to show that you went beyond your A-level curriculum. So, kind of a formula that I would recommend is in our class in biology we did this. I really found that interesting, so then I went and did this. You see, you go beyond your curriculum. This person hasn't done that, nor have they like been specific as you guys mentioned. So it's better than the last one, but I don't think it's still enough to get them an interview.
Got a
This is the
question.
third one I
Sorry, just
have.
before you move on.
Yeah.
Um, Someone asked, is it worth mentioning an EPQ? I did it based on racial bias in healthcare.
100% worth it. All of my students I speak to, if you did IB, mention your extended essay. If you did A levels, mention your EPQ. 100%. So when I talk about like the academic section, the second checklist, add it in there. So I like this and this and this so much that I did an EPQ on it. I learned this and this. Okay. Even it could have given you some skills. So if you did like an experiment, it could have given you some lab skills. Mention that. If you wrote something up, you can talk about your scientific writing abilities, your ability to extract data. You then just found something interesting, therefore you're set on studying this at a university standard. Okay. So definitely mention it. Good question. Any more? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide now. So this is a slightly more improved version. I'm going to read it out to you guys. I have always been fascinated by the way the human body works, particularly the complexity of the nervous system. During my A-level biology, I was captivated by the mechanisms of transmission and how small chemical imbalances can have profound effects on behavior and health. This curiosity led me to read scientific articles about neurodegenerative diseases, deepening my understanding of how research can translate into life changing treatments. Medicine, to me, is a career where I can combine this love of science and a lifelong commitment to learning and contributing to patient care in the NHS. Now, what are you guys' thoughts on this one?
So Serena mentioned in the chat, shows curiosity, reflection for a career in medicine, and personal aspects as well. And Natasha said this is definitely more specific and personal to the applicant.
Exactly. Any more? So, what I had to say about this is that it shows a specific spark, a specific personal interest. Like saying nervous system, neurotransmission, I would say that this level of detail is the max you guys need to go to. I don't think you need to talk about, like, look up some crazy stuff, talk about some really detailed stuff. I think talking about generally chemical imbalances, nervous system, I think that's enough and that's good level. It shows fascination. It shows that they've done some independent reading. If this was my personal statement, or if I was coaching this person, I would say that The scientific articles part is a bit vague. Like, what science articles? Give me a name, give me an author, give me a journal you read, because you could have made that up. However, it still shows that they've done some independent reading and they've engaged with some research outside of the classroom, which is really good. Remember, you need to be able to talk about it in an interview, so don't lie. And they've connected the NHS subtly. They know that they're aware of like it being a lifelong commitment. I don't think it's very cliche. I think they told you that they want to make, contribute to patient care. I think that's simple enough. So overall, I don't think it's over dramatic. I think this is well written. I think there's some improvements to be made, but much, much better than the last two that we saw. But do you guys see that from the first one, if I flip back, we're still talking about biology, we're still talking about the human body, and we've still said that we want to be a doctor. Your content is the same, but it's the way you show them the journey and the detail that a lot of people aren't putting in their personal statement, and so it just does not stand out. So this is a level that you want to be aiming for, at least for your first few drafts, okay? Any questions before I move on? Okay. So now I just want to quickly talk about some common pitfalls that people often go through. So I mentioned this before, but overly dramatic stories, they're not going to get you anywhere, so don't put them in. Being generic, just saying I want to help people isn't good enough. And then I want to talk about the balance that you need. Focusing too much on science without realizing or without highlighting that, there's a human side to medicine. You need to be a good communicator. You need to be able to talk to families and be an empathetic person. If you don't mention that kind of thing and you just come across as a very brainy person, that's not good enough. You might as well just go study physics or neuroscience while you're doing a healthcare degree. But on the flip side, if you're focusing too much on the empathetic, helping people side, and you don't come across as a very academic person, this isn't good because, as I said, you're going to be a student for 6 years. You need to be committed to your books. Okay, so you need to show that you're ready to study. Another thing, not linking your experiences. We mentioned that before with the 3-step motivation ladder. You need to be linking, you need to be reflecting. And I've mentioned this multiple times. Mention things that you're confident to speak about in your interview. Otherwise, you're going to get to your interview and then you're going to let yourself down. Okay? And
Some questions in the chat before we move on to the
yeah,
next
go
slide.
on.
So we've got two questions. The first one's from Ellie. Would the last example you showed be a complete answer to question one?
Well, I need to check how many characters it is, first of all, because if you've got more characters to more characters to fill, then there's more to be added, right? I think it's a good base. I think it could be complete if your other two questions are like quite long. But in terms of like my checklist, it checks off each point. You might want to just add more examples. You might want to, because you mentioned like biology, you might also study chemistry. You might want to put chemistry in there. You might have read a book, add a book in there. This is where you want to talk about your EPQ, add your EPQ in there. This is like a 3-point easy example. It could get you through, but if you've got characters to fill, add more in along the same lines.
Okay, and we've got three more questions other than that one, but I think we'll save them for the Q&A. It's coming up soon, right? We're
Yeah, we'll
nearly
do a
at...
Q&A at the end.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry guys, just so we kind of get through the slides and then have a Q&A session at the end. We'll save those ones for the end.
I went through the common pitfalls. This screenshot is directly from the UCAS website again. So I just wanted to make you guys aware of like the do's and don'ts. So obviously, like add examples, make it personal. We've talked about all of these things. The things you don't want to do is copy something you've seen online, use AI. Don't make things up just because you think they'll look good. And you will need time for several drafts. Your personal statement is going to take so many drafts that you get tired. You're going to have so many versions saved on your computer, like version 1.794. Like you're going to get tired of it, but you need to start early. And then by the end of it, you'll be satisfied. I wanted to make a quick disclaimer about using ChatGPT because if you guys like don't really like writing and you're not that good at in English, for example, it might be very tempting to use ChatGPT and you might get by. But first things first, they put them through an AI detector. So you might get caught out. And that's not good if you want a degree in healthcare and a career in healthcare. That's going to put you right back to where you started. They're not going to allow you to work in healthcare then. Secondly, from somebody who's been coaching for quite a long time, um, I can kind of tell the difference between an AI generated personal statement and something where you've brainstormed with your parents or your friends and your teacher, and like something that's a bit more authentic. I can tell the difference. So just be aware, be smart. You can even talk to people at school or you can read up online. There's a lot of resources other than AI and ChatGPT. So just because you might put something in and it gives you a good sentence, just be aware that somebody who's read a lot of personal statements will be able to sniff that out. You might not be able to, but someone who's reading hundreds will be able to. And I know that for a fact. So, like, coming from just like giving you good advice, just be aware of that, okay? Um, so that kind of wraps up the first part of the masterclass. We've talked about question one. We talked about why medicine and what you need to include here. We talked about our motivation ladder. We talked about showing and not telling and being specific. And if you guys have enjoyed this session, I highly recommend you join the next two, where we'll be talking about question two and question three. During those sessions, so for the people that are going to be joining next week, which I really recommend, I would like to give you guys a task. It's okay if you don't do it. This isn't homework, but I think it will help you to get started. If you could just draft your first three sentences for why medicine and try to capture the reader. I'll then choose like one or two people next week. You guys can volunteer if you want for me to put it up on the screen and go through it with you. It's only going to be good for you and beneficial for you, and then everybody can learn like that. So that's basically my task for you guys. And if we stop the recording, we can do like a bit of a longer Q&A if you want.